Today's demo is going to be using a dovetail jig to make half-line dovetails for drawers. Half-line dovetails are normally the choice for drawers. You can do them out of box joints, you can do them out of through dovetails, you can do all kinds of stuff. But half-lines allow you to cut a dado for a bottom without being invisible on the other end. It's the only one that does it, besides the lock miter bit. So with this one, you can make an 1/8 inch bottom, a 1/4 inch bottom, however you want to do it, and you'll feel comfortable that it won't be popping through here. And how is that? Because when we put this together, we pick one of the tails that we're going to take that dado through. So as long as we're in one of these tails completely, it won't show through. If it's between the tails, oh yeah, you'll see it. But keep it in the tail. That's why you want to do this stuff first before you cut your dado, exactly where the tails are, so you can go through one. Okay? So this is a half line. Doesn't go all the way through. You can't see it from the face. So this is your face board. These are your sideboards for your drawer. Another way we like to call it is these are the pin boards, these are the tail boards. The tail boards look like this. Okay? So a pin board would be the front and the back. The tail boards are going to be the sides. A lot of people get confused about where they're supposed to put the boards. Do you have to do half the joints on this side, half the joints on this side? And if you don't do it right, yes, you do. If you do it right, it doesn't make any difference in the world. And what do I mean by doing it right? This particular jig sets its a little bit differently than some of the others, okay? This is from a tabletop router table, a Lee. This is from the Porter cable. Now, one thing the Porter cable has that the others don't is Porter cable, whoever came up with it, actually had a pretty good idea. What's the size? This is like 5 7/8 inches. This one, when you use a Porter cable jig, the width of your boards are going to be either 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches. I don't like that spacing. So I do mine 3 1/4, 4 1/4, 5 1/4, 6 1/4, 7 1/4. What's the difference? This is set to the spacing I like. This is 3 1/4 inches here. And I'll pass this around. Where the black lines are is where the edge would be if this was a 3 inch. Okay? And the reason I like the 3 1/4 is I like more meat on these end pieces. I've run across it some woods. If I've got it really close to it, then the wood will tear out and I'll lose this corner piece. So I like this. I'll pass this around. That's 3 1/4. That's a good sized drawer. But the nice part about this jig is, why do I need to cut it? It's always going to be a number of inches plus 1/4. 2, 3, 4. Up to the maximum of this is 12 inches. So really the maximum I can do on this is 11 1/4. And other than that, it's very, if you use those measurements, and then you put it tap dead center in this, you can do the whole drawer on one side. You don't have to go left side, right side. If you do something crazy with offside line up, yeah, then you have to do that. But why make extra work for ourselves? Because it's going to look beautiful this way, and nobody cares about if it's 3 1/2 inches or 3 1/4 inches or 3 7/8 inches. Who cares is the woodworker, the one who's actually going to make it, and that's you guys. So, this is what we get. One of these, this here, these knobs here, hold places, these little silver nuts here. And just to go through this real quick, depending on the jig you get, It's either going to come with this one, or it's going to come with this one and a through dovetail one, or it's going to come with this one and a through dovetail and a small little thing to make little, like little toy boxes, little model boxes, that kind of thing. So this is the one you'll use most. And with this one, you can do half blinds. You can also do box joints. You can also do a sliding dovetail. So there's all kinds of joints you can do with just this one. And you see it's too bad, but between the tips of these points is 1 inch. And that's really nice as far as we're concerned for standardization. Now there's a space between the black knob and the gold bushing. So we can put it here. Some people like to come here and put it on this side. If I do that, then I'm going to put a little nut behind here. But what we want to do is to be able to move this around. And what do I mean by move it around? I'll pass this around too. See this line right here across the top? Okay. When we have our wood in here, and I'll show you too we do it, where the two pieces of wood come together, it's got to be dead on where the line is. So that's why we would adjust this in and out to make sure we get that. Because it's going to be different for 1/2 inch stock than it would be for 3/4 inch stock. And so this is going to give us some adjustability. That's why these are here. What a lot of people like to do, and I like to do this too, I'll take these nuts behind it. Once I get this in the right spot, I'll bring these nuts behind it up tight, then lock this in place. Now when I take it in and out, this doesn't move. So just vibrations or anything going on in the shop, this could wiggle, bring the nut behind it. So ideally, you want this between the black knob and the silver nut, a gold nut. But right now, since we're going to adjust, and you also see these things move back and forth. We're going to talk about that in just a minute too. Get these out of here. Okay. So we've decided that we're going to make our drawer 3.5 inches wide. Okay. So here's my drawer stock. What's really, really important. Did I say that enough? What's really, really important. If we want everything to work, all our measurements are going to be on this side, which means we want the same piece of wood to be on this side. Okay? So we don't want to get this confused. So the best way to do this, not to get it confused, is to lay out our drawer. Now, when we lay out our drawer, we've got our sides, we've got our front, we've got our back, and we're going to call this left, right, front, back, okay? And then we're going to lay these open, and we're going to make our marks on them, okay? But before we do this, there's something that you need about the wood. Wood grows in trees. It's got growth rings. If we were to take a pencil and mark out the growth rings, we would see these curves. Now, looking at this, can anybody tell me which side is the bark side and which side is the center of the tree side? This is, okay? When you make a drawer, you want the bark facing inside, okay? So when I look at this, same thing. I want the bark facing inside. Why is that? Because as this is out and tightens up, you're having it pull everything together with the bark side on the inside. That's just the way it's going to go. So if you put the bark side on the inside, when this drawer dries out over time, it's going to make the joints tighter. If you flipped it and had the bark on the outside, it would actually loosen the joints and make wobbly furniture. So bark inside. So we've got this laid out. Now, this is going to be real simple to us. First, we want to mark sides. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to call this A. A. That means A and A have got to line up. B. B. I know I'm going on a limb here. C. C. D, D. We also want to know which end's up. I do all my marking on the inside, even though it'd be much easier to sand if I do my marking on the outside. I do my marking on the inside because in this jig, no matter where the wood is, the outside is to the jig, which means everything we see is going to be the inside of the drawer. So I like to put my marks there where I can see them. So the first thing we need to do is we need to take a piece of wood, and this is pins up here, tails down here. Here you can see we've taken a magic mark and wrote pins across the top to remind us if we forget. So this is the pin board. What I want to do is I want to put the board in here, and I'm going to start in the middle for right now just to get things lined up. The first thing I want to do is I want to push this down, and I want to take these, just screw them down so they almost touch. And now we can move this around, but when we throw this and lock it, it doesn't move. Okay? Different size wood, we're going to have to do this different times. So if it's 3/4 of an inch instead of 1/2 inch like this is, it'd be a little bit higher. So, but it's easy to do. All you have to do is just press this down and just move these in. And we'll do the same. Here's A over here. There we go. A little bit tighter. What we're going to do is we're going to take this one. We want to take it all the way up to the top. And that's right about where we're going to lock these in place. And now this is in place. This is the right size. Now what I want to do is I want to move this board to what I think looks like this and this stuff. Okay, so this is centered. So you always want to make sure that you have handy dandy little ruler. So if that's 3 1/4 inches, what's half of 3 inches? 1.5 inches. What's half of 1/4? So I need to measure 1 5/8 inches, right? So from the edge of this to the center 5/8 inches. It's pretty darn close. It's actually just 1/64 of an inch off. I can live with that. Okay, we want to do this. This is lined up here. Now what we want to do is we want to take this, we want to move this till it hits. If it doesn't hit, then I just need to move this whole thing over 1 more notch. So this is in the center. We move this until it touches right here, and then we lock it in place. And one of these is going to come with the jig. Okay, now this is all clamped in, but if you could look at this, you will find out the edge right here where this joins together and where it's supposed to be is about this far off. So we're going to have to move this out. Also, too, if you're worried about this part over here, you can throw another board over here. Keeps everything even. The nice part about this is once you do it one time, it's all set up for all the others. Now, if you look at this now, you'll see that the line on the wood, which is very, very thin, and the line on the top, which is a little thicker, I've got this line lined up with the top of the line that's going in. Normally, you'll find out that if you've got too much overlap, the line, you move the whole jig to you. If you've got not enough, in other words, if your joints are really proud, you move them out a little bit. If the joints don't come up, where's the air go? Yes, you run your finger over this, okay? Those bumps that you feel, that means this is a little bit proud of the surface. It's a little bit higher. Normally you want that to be the case, just a little bit higher so you can make it flush with sanding. If it was the other way and there was dips in here, that's bad because you can't sand the whole thing in here to make it even. So you always want it just a little bit proud. You'll find out that when you set it up, when you look at it, there's a certain way that's it's going to be easy for you, a certain way there's not. I always like to make them just a little bit proud. So that's why I start on the closest part of the line to me. It's not much, just a little bit. And then this first pass, this is always your setup. We're still in the setup. We're not even making the drawer yet. But what I've got is I've got an A, and I've got an A right here. I've got this pointing this way, this pointing this way, right? So theoretically, our jig's set up right now to work with. So we're ready to go. It's all tightened, everything's tightened up. We've tightened this up. Now let's go over to the router. This is a simple cut. All this needs is a simple router. This is a 690 series router. It's probably more of these than anything else in the country today. It's a standard Porter cable, 1 3/4 horsepower, no variable CV, no soft start. But it's a good router for doing what we're doing. 1/2-inch collet. Inside the 1/2-inch collet, you'll see this dovetail bit. This is a 17/32 size bit with a 7-degree angle. This comes in the kit with this, and it's got a nice little case. It's even got instructions say, use bit 4377 6PC. That's it. And this is the only bit we'll use with this cut. And this is also in the kit. The router is not, you got to supply that. This is a bushing. What this bushing is going to do is it's going to slots, and it's not going to allow side movement. It's perfect to go in there, no side-to-side movement. So this is what is going to control the cut for us, okay? This is a 3/4 inch outside diameter, and it's obviously big enough so that this is not going to hit the sides. On this side of the bushing is a lock ring. So when we put this in this little slot here, so the first thing you want to look at your routers at home, you need a base plate that looks exactly like this. This is a Porter cable one. If you have a like a Festool, you'd have a different type of bush. They do the same thing, but stock plates for that. Yes. Yeah. This is what normally comes with this router. And you can see this little indentation here. If you start looking at router bases, you're going to start seeing a lot of these, and they're all meant for bushings. These bushings here to here look pretty tall, but these are actually less in height-wise than 1/4 inch. Why do you think that is? Because most patterns people cut are 1/4 inch stock. If this is smaller than 1/4 inch, then the bushing is not going to lift the pattern up. So this goes right in here. We put the ring on. It's infinitely easier to take this off and do it. And you can hand tighten this. You don't need to crank down up. The vibrations will make it even tighter. So now the question you ask is, what's the proper depth? Okay. Porter cable did another thing I really like. They put a stop right here. It comes, adjusted it. Please, dear Lord, don't loosen the nut and make this go up and down, because you'll never get it back right. Okay. But what you do with this, so you put our router up here, put the bit there, and just rotate this till it doesn't wiggle anymore. I know I've got this clamp, see, but if you looked at this, you'd see the two outer parts of the dovetail bit are resting on the piece of plastic, and this isn't wiggling, so this is good. This is a good hit. So that's the right proper depth for what we want to do. If you wanted to set it yourself, between the base of this and the top of that, it's exactly 3/8 of an inch. Yeah, and the best way to do that is to get one of those brass spacers that's 3/8 of an inch and just set it between there. The last time I had to do that, I actually taped it to the underside so I wouldn't have to hold it, and I can use both hands to move it up and down, then lock it in with the nut. So let's make sure we're good to go here. We've got the router hooked up, power's on. We've got this locked in place. It's not going to move. We've got this locked in place. That's not going to move. That's just there as a spacer. And then what we'll do is we're just going to take a plunge cut all the way through here. The first thing I like to do, I like to always let the router come to a complete stop, and then unplug the blade head. Sweep off the dust. So here we go. Now I'm seeing a little gap here, so it tells me that this move, that I should have made this a little bit tighter. But let's see what we... As it moved, I didn't have it clamped tight enough. You can see that the piece moved during the routing. Do test and scrap stock. So if we were going to use this for the drawer, we'd throw that away. But since we're using it for stock, we're going to do it. Let's do... So we're going to put this in like this. And tighten this down a little bit more. Crank it in there. Okay. Again, you'll see here's B, here's B. We're always got these on the same side. That means, for instance, the bottom of the box. We haven't got it twisted around. Sometimes if you're not paying attention, you can have the bottom here and then a bottom over here, and then when you line them together, how come these aren't lining up right? Right on the left side. And it's easier just to put these numbers next to each other so you can see them, that they're next to each other. Okay, that stayed together. Little tear out. Speaking of tear out, you can do this with plywood. I've tried plywood over and over and over again, and I can never get plywood to work right. Okay, this is really, really tight. So, how do we fix it if it's really, really tight? You can remember the instructions that would tell you. But I'm not. But right here, leaves have got all their, Porter cables have got all the tips. And right here it says, if the joint's too tight, raise the bit. So raising the bit gives us a tighter joint. So what we do, so put these back. And we can put this over here. Line everything up. Now we don't want to do this much, okay? Everybody see this line right here? There's a little tiny line that they put in here. And you can take this collar and you can move it around so that zero is pointing on this little tiny line. Now, I want to bring the router this way. So I want to move it like that and make it a little bit tighter. So here is a 1/16 of an inch. Here's a 32nd of an inch. Here's a 64th of an inch. So I'm going to take a 64th of an inch off and see if that doesn't make it better. That's how fine the measurements we can do with this little thing right here. And routers, no matter what you heard, routers don't bounce well.
They love to eat.
They do love to eat. So here, all we're doing now is just going back with the bit a little bit higher. That's going to pull the sides up a little bit to take a little bit more wood off. Normally when I do this, again, this is just the setup phase, I normally go up in increments of a 64th of an inch. Now, obviously, sometimes I can do that. I have to do it 3 times. So I've got to take everything apart, put it together, put it again. But again, all we're doing now, this is still working on our setup. Once we get this done, we can do 100 doors in an afternoon. Boom, 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 boom. It's just, we spend all our time making sure this part is right. Sixty-fourth of an inch did good, didn't it? Now, another thing we're looking at, look how much those things are sticking out. Okay? This is way too proud. So this would tell us we want to adjust the template back the other way. Again, if we can't remember, we can look over here and it says too much overlap, move template towards you. Not enough, move template away. So we've got way too much. So we're going to move it towards us. Good. Now we want to move this where? Towards me. And I'll lock this down. So we're going to loosen this up and move this towards me. Move the brass one out, bring the lock nut behind it. Now I really moved it, so kind of exaggerated a little bit. So we are good to go. Everything's locked, tight, tight. This one, yeah, it's supposed to be all the way up. Now that means that this template line raised up on us. There we go, so it's nice and tight. We're good there, we're good here. Looks like it's still in the middle. go. Dinner time. Pardon?
Get your chair out.
Oh, that's right. D to D, A to A. That's what's supposed to be. It's full of shot, so it doesn't rebound. It doesn't mar. Okay, and now we're too far the other way. So
That's the worst case.
worst case. So what I'm showing you is what it looks like when it's too far out. Now this is too far in. And what we're going to do to adjust this is now is just push this in a little bit further. You don't have to make big adjustments. I adjusted just a whole line width, and I went from too far to not far enough.